now as part of broader engagements aimed at deepening economic cooperation and attracting investments into Nigeria and Africa. Now, speaking on the significance of this summit, presidential spokesman Sir Daniel Bwala says the engagement aligns closely with the administration's renewed hope agenda and its ongoing efforts to reposition Nigeria's economy for sustainable growth. According to him, 7 of the 6 thematic areas scheduled for discussion at the summit reflect policy decisions and, of course, policy directions already been implemented by the Nigerian government. Well, my guest is Mr. Otega Ogra. He's a senior special assistant on digital and new media to President Bola Tinubu. Yeah, he was with the president in Nairobi, and now I think they're at Kigali for the Africa CEO Summit. Mr. Ogra, thank you so much. It's good to have you join us on the show.
Good afternoon, Tolu. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I think we should start with the essence of this conference. Now, a lot has been said about what is expected with regards to this partnership. Take us through what has been discussed and what we should be expecting.
So for me, I think the essence of all these engagements, across Africa and the world is that Africa is entering a new phase of economic diplomacy, as you put it. And the most important thing for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is that Nigeria is not on the sidelines of this conversation. Nigeria must be at the center of all these conversations, pushing itself, showing what it has to give the entire world, and letting people know that the time is ripe for them to bet on Nigeria. And there's never been a better time to take a bet on the Nigerian economy, which has seen significant reforms under him.
Now, that sounds good, but France and Africa's partnership, many will say that what does this really mean at this time amidst what is happening in the Middle East?
So you say what the Middle East crisis has done is expose the fragile underbelly of the global economy. Supply chains are shifting, the energy conversations are back on the table across the world, whether it's in Africa, the West, or the Far East. So what is happening in the Middle East has actually shown Africa that, see, the time has come for us to work together, to collaborate together, to play to our areas of strength. As you can see with the Dangote refinery now sending, cargoes of crude, of petrol, refined petroleum products to other African countries. Even the agricultural conversation is on the table because, you see, a lot of fertilizers are byproducts of the refining business, and the Middle East is one of the, biggest suppliers of that across the world. So all these things are back on the table. And beyond Africa talking to itself, the summit in Nairobi was about Africa and Europe looking for areas, where they could collaborate even further, with France as the gateway to that continent.
So really, we're not talking about just aids here now. We're talking about real partnership. Is that what we're talking about? Let's get that clear.
Definitely, we're talking about real partnerships. And I will start by saying 2 things. One, there was a pipeline of almost $300 billion in investments new investments across Africa that President Macron spoke about. But most importantly, for Nigeria, yesterday we also saw the signing by Shoreline Group and Accor Hotels, one of the largest hotel chains in the world, to build a national hotel infrastructure. I'm sure you and I would know that currently Nigeria does not have any major global chain of hotels that is spread across the country. This solves that. And when you're talking about the hotel business, it's not just rooms we're talking about, so it's tied into tourism, it's tied into aviation, it's tied into the food supply system, it's tied into different parts of the economy. So that for me was a very big one, which was signed during the France-Nigeria Business Council meetings yesterday, which had 20 of the top businessmen in Nigeria and France coming together. And you can see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu talking about it yesterday evening. He's fully in support of it. He's expecting that more businesses will take their bets on Nigeria, whilst the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu continues to put in place, systems and ensure that Nigeria is good for business.
Again, President Macron is talking about committing some amount, of course, to aid out to and make sure that this partnership comes to the fore. Let's look at sectors. What sector specifics do you think that Nigeria has the strength to be able to take advantage of all of these partnerships as we continue to move that drive for investors across the world? Which areas do you think we could tap into, or other countries could tap into, and could benefit all and sundry?
So the beautiful thing about what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done under the Renewed Hope agenda, and if you go, this goes back to his manifesto, one of the key things he spoke about was diversifying the Nigerian economy. So for the global investor that is looking to come into Nigeria, what we have done in different fields, from agriculture, and when I'm talking about agriculture, I'm not just talking of commodity crops. We are looking at the entire value chain, to mining, where we now have laws, that ensure that you must add value in Nigeria. So for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, value addition is key. You're seeing, like you see, the non-oil sector contributing a lot to our revenues as a federation. So when you look at it, whether it's agriculture, whether it's aviation, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's oil and gas, where we've seen, and energy and power, where we've seen almost 9 executive orders since 2023, Nigeria is ready for business across different sectors. As at the last report that I checked, in our balance of trade reports, you could see that even value-added services in things like aluminium processing, cocoa production and all that, in terms of cocoa butter, cocoa oils and the rest, they are beginning to show on our balance of trade. And that, for me, is a pointer to show that Nigeria can no longer be dependent on it. We are no longer dependent on a single product or commodity to grow our economy. Nigeria is ripe for business. We'll continue to do the work that we need to do to ensure that, businesses can come here, they can thrive, they can repatriate their funds when they want to do it. The FX system is already very, very clear. And if you're not thinking of going into any of those major industries, take a bet on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, one of the best performing stock exchanges in the world, in 2026.
Indeed. Energy transition, agriculture, artificial intelligence. These are some sectors I see that is a renewed drive across the world. But let's look at talking about our reforms now. I'm sure that was raised again at that gathering, talking about what even the Minister of Finance, Mr. Idile, said, that there was no going back and bringing back subsidy and all of that. So let me ask you, what were the major comments with regards to reforms ongoing in Nigeria, impact of the Middle East crisis on fuel prices, and what everyone is thinking about interventions? How is that faring, and how is Nigeria faring around that space?
Going by all the comments that we've heard, and from investors, from other governments and everything, the world seems to be happy with the direction Nigeria is going. And as you know, capital follows stability. Capital follows confidence. And because of that confidence that people are now seeing in the Nigerian economy, because of that confidence that people are seeing in our reforms, because of the confidence that people are seeing in, a reform that most of the world did not expect would succeed, or they didn't give us a chance to succeed, but against all odds, it's now a model for countries that were in the state that we were in 2023, to borrow. That confidence has returned, and we expect that as the comments that we heard, a lot more people will be coming into Nigeria to do business in this country. Nigeria is just, without being immodest, I think the best place to do business for anyone in the world right now.
The stability in our foreign exchange market is something that everyone also believes is driving foreign investors to come in. But now you are in Rwanda, Kigali, and next is the Africa CEO Summit, a very important meeting too, that I know that the likes of Alhaji Dangote, Tony Elumelu and all would be attending these meetings. What next, and what do you think would shape conversations at this very important CEO's Summit?
So Nairobi was about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Nigeria and Africa in quotes, interacting with their counterparts in Europe through France, and government, mostly government-to-government interactions. The Africa CEO Forum, on the other hand, is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu pitching Nigeria again to the investing public. You have the largest, it's the largest congregation of African CEOs, development finance institutions, other governments in the whole of Africa as a conference. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be taking the front seat there alongside 6 other African presidents, to sell their countries, to sell partnerships between the private sector of all countries on the continent, and to show, the financial institutions across the world why they should no longer consider Africa as the backdoor of the world. We've moved beyond conversations about aid to conversations about how do we intend to be seen, how do we intend to partner the rest of the world based on mutual respect, based on, value addition on the continent, based on, a system where we do not need any longer to rely on, people looking down on Nigeria or the continent and see us as partners in progress for the betterment of the entire world.
Indeed, back to Africa. When we talk Africa, I always remember the AFCFTA and what that means, that large market where we should play in between ourselves. I don't know how well or what you make of that agreement and how well we are faring. But that's on one side. I'd like your comments on that. And finally, before I let you go, it's few months to election. Yes, we could say it's few months. Any form of distraction, we still see governments moving head on, the reforms, meetings, strategic meetings, partnerships and all of that. Any form of distraction as we move, because we're thinking that very soon there will be a shift from economic policy and, issues, and all focus will be on the forthcoming elections.
So I'll say something. I mean, you've been in the media business longer than I have ever been in, probably even before I started my career. And you've seen President Bola Ahmed Tinubu govern before, as a governor of Lagos State. If anyone knows him too well, he does not get distracted from the job at hand. His job as the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is to govern and govern only. And that is what he's going to continue doing. I don't think there's anyone in the country right now that can make him distracted from the job of doing what he promised Nigerians that he would do. Recently I was going through all the campaign documents and promises that he made across different sectors. And for most of those things, and I advise a lot of Nigerians to do it because you gave Mr. President your mandate on most of those 8, renewed hope agenda. We've done mostly 80 to 90% of the things that we said we'll do, and the others are already ongoing. So President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man that says what he will do and does what he will say. And might just chip it in. There's no better person to vote for another 4 years to come and become as the president of Nigeria come 2027. Now back to the AFCFTA. The African Continental Free Trade Area, I think, is one of the best things that has ever happened to Africa. What I would love to see, and you see a lot of Nigerian companies already taking advantage of it. You're seeing increased exports of, agricultural products. You're seeing increased exports of services. You're seeing, even now you can do interbank transfers between African countries as a result of, PAPs, which Afrexim Bank set up as under the FCFTA. What I would love to see right now is to improve on aspects of things like, traveling between countries, access, movement of goods and services between African countries, because sometimes it beats me why it's much more easier to travel from Europe to Africa than from an African to move across different African countries. So AFCFTA is good for Nigeria, AFCFTA is good for Africa, and I encourage more Nigerians to take advantage of it, under the current economic status of Nigeria.
All right, let me thank you for your time. Otega Ogra is the Senior Special Assistant on Digital and New Media to President Bola Tinubu. Thank you so much for your time. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Sulu. Always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, then.